Well, this past week, too, guys, a lot of people were burned by very cheap options at tight end. Let's see. James O'Shaughnessy, Foster Moreau, they were both elevated in the starting roles, so we are definitely looking at them, but we forgive O'Shaughnessy because he doesn't really have a head coach there in Jacksonville. So maybe it's time to pay up at the position. George Kittle here, Steven, had a monster game on Sunday against Seattle. He racked up more than 42 DraftKings fantasy points. He's 6,900 this week against the Bengals. I know it feels a little bit like some recency bias here, but chase or fade that it's worth chasing Kittle's high price after that huge game.
No, because I think the ownership is going to follow him there. I'm more than prepared to pay down at tight end again this week. I think there's some really good options down there, like Gerald Everett for the Seattle Seahawks. He's been getting so involved in that offense. I mean, he's seen 6 targets or more in 3 of his 4 last games. Evan Ingram's seen at least 5 targets in over his last 3 games. And then you have guys like Austin Hooper in a great matchup against the Baltimore Ravens, one of the worst teams in the league at defending against opposing tight ends. Even Nick Vanette's getting a little more looks now with the amount of injuries that the Saints have been dealing with. So there's a lot of guys in that mid 3,500 to 3K range that I think are extremely viable options. They're not going to get you 40 DraftKings fantasy points or anything like that, but they should be able to give you enough to pay back their salary, because there's going to be other positions I want to be paying up for. We talked about the quarterback position. We talked about guys like Leonard Fournette. So I think paying down at tight end is once again going to be the option this week.
Yeah, Maddie, I feel like, though, there's never anything wrong with like banking on one of the game's top tight ends, and I know how bad the Bengals are. Give up like second most fantasy points to them.
Yeah, I think the injuries are going to dictate a lot of what I think here. So part of what happened last week is Deebo Samuel didn't play against the Seahawks, and George Kittle has to take on a much larger role. I mean, we've seen Deebo this year basically do everything for the 49ers, whether it's being a running back or catching passes over the middle or catching the ball downfield. You take him out, and there's just much more to go around for everyone. So if Deebo is back this week, I think it's hard to expect Kittle to have anything close to the same level of production. But if Deebo's out again, even if Kittle's popular, I still think we can kind of expect him to continue to have a big role. I do think Deebo will play. So with that being the case, like, you probably just want to pick somebody else. Maybe Darren Waller comes back. He's a little cheaper. Or like Steve said, you just go down to a way cheaper tight end because there are some values. Maybe Jared Cook gets a little bit of an uptick in targets with Keenan Allen not playing. So I think there are a lot of options. But I do like Kittle if Deebo winds up not playing this week.